Good evening, everybody. Welcome to episode 45 of the About the Cards podcast, live tonight on YouTube. You can hear us on iTunes and Stitcher. As always, with host Stefan Loeffler at Junkwax Twins. Tim Shepler, which is Big Shep 79. He's on assignment tonight, so we've got a pinch hitter. We have special guest host Mike Summer, not at a Mike Summer, but at the Mike Summer. There's one and only. So we appreciate him joining us tonight. How are we, guys?
Doing great.
Things are good.
Good. We appreciate you, Mike, for stepping in. I know we had you on before, so it'll be kind of nice tonight to have you kind of in a slightly different angle as a co-host. You know, if you're really good, maybe we can send Tim out on special assignment more often.
There you go. I'm looking forward to it. Thanks for asking me to come on.
No, we definitely appreciate your time tonight. About the Cards podcast. We are a podcast by collectors for collectors. We hope to bring you a smart and insightful podcast discussing trading card collecting. We're live time tonight. We okay?
I think so.
Turn down your radio in your car, please. We're live every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on YouTube. You can follow us on Twitter at About the Cards. Once again, we're available on iTunes, Stitcher, and YouTube. Just search About the Cards Pod. And you can check out our new website, aboutthecards.wordpress.com. So without further ado, let's get into the show. Unfortunately, we do have to start the show on a bit of a sour note. We got some sad news. One of our sister podcasts in the hobby, Let Me Get That Potograph, which was co-hosted by Drew Herndon and Stuart Payne. Stuart lost his battle with cancer this past week, and I think he was diagnosed this past October. And if I'm not mistaken, it was like stage 4 terminal cancer. Wasn't much of a chance, unfortunately, so he had a few more months with his family and friends. And not much we can say other than our condolences definitely go out to Stuart's family, his wife, his widow, Autumn, and of course, Drew Herndon. You can follow him and his podcast at LGTP Podcast. He's a really good friend and a great contributor to the hobby himself. Stuart's loss will definitely be felt by everybody who ever encountered him. He was a really good guy. I personally didn't know him all that well. It's just an unfortunate loss. One thing that one of our other friends, Eric Norton, Fat Pax Podcast, who helped put together the T-shirt for the Bice family, he put together a trading card of Stuart. It was hand-drawn by Ken Carl. They're only going to print 100 copies. The first 59 will actually be serial numbered, 1 through 59. The final 41 will be in Carolina blue. Each card, if you choose to buy one, is $15 after production fees. All proceeds will go to Stuart's widow, Autumn's GoFundMe. I'm assuming to cover expenses and whatnot surrounding his passing. So definitely reach out and grab one. I'm gonna send some money this evening to Drew and order one myself. Once again, if you would like to help out in any way, have any questions of how you can donate or purchase a card, you can definitely hit up Drew at LGTP Podcast or search Let Me Get That Potograph on Twitter. I believe he's also on YouTube and iTunes and whatnot. So we don't like having to announce news like that, but unfortunately, one of our brethren passed away. And so, if you're a religious person, I believe you are, Mike, our prayers, and we'll keep his family, in our prayers, and, offer our condolences. Anything you guys want to say before we move on?
It's an absolute unfortunate tragedy, and we just wish all the best to his family and the show.
Sure.
All right, Steph. So now that we've started everybody off on a kind of a sad note, we want to get to the week that was.
Yes, I do.
All right.
So leading off, like always, we got Tops Living week number 58. Fortunately, I didn't track what week number this is, but we had Evan Longoria, Fernando Tatis Jr., and Andrelton Simmons. The big news out of this is that the print run's finally over 1 million. And with the huge boom from Fernando Tatis Jr. selling just over 10,000. Ben won the bet, by the way.
Wasn't he supposed to sell over 22,500 copies, Stefan?
22.5. Yes, there was.
And did he? My math might be a little
I
off.
don't think he did. This episode brought to you by Sesame Street. The other two cards, 29.30 for Evan Longoria and 29.14 for Andrelton Simmons. And check out, as always, Topps Living Stat for full breakdown where the cards fall respectively by team, by position, by week, by card number, by everything. Coming up next, we've got Bowman Baseball came out last week. Panini Flawless Football, 2018-19 OPG Platinum Hockey, which is a pain to categorize, but that's another story. 2019 Sage Hit High Series Football, 418. And on 419, we had 2018 Leaf Metal Perfect Game All-American Baseball, which rolls us into new releases. Topps Living again. Pretty good week, I think. You got 175, card number 175, Jim Palmer of the Orioles. You got a vintage player. Number 176, you got Pete, not Peter, Alonso of the Mets, hot rookie. And veteran number 177, Tim Beckham for the Mariners. Any bets for those?
What's that, Mike?
I said I'm looking forward to this week. I think it's a pretty good week with Alonso and Palmer on there.
Absolutely. I know someone who's already bought 20 Alonsos. So there's at least 20 sold for him.
Do you collect this set at all, Mike?
Yeah, I've got the full run from 1 through current.
Nice.
So,
oh wow.
So I've got the full thing and plan on keeping on. So yeah, I pick up the three card bundle every week when it comes out.
Now is that something
do you buy it off the secondary?
What was that?
Good.
Oh, it was good. Do you buy it off the secondary market or do you buy it direct from Topps?
I buy them direct from Topps.
Nice.
Gotcha. Okay. What was your question, Steph?
I was going to say, is that something you started from week 1, or have you start on like week 4 and picked up the previous?
Yeah, I started probably in July or August of last year. One of my buddies got me into it from, I don't know, he started from the very beginning and he kept telling me about it. And eventually he convinced me that it would be a good one to get into. And so I picked up a bunch of extras that he had probably in July or August, and then caught up on the secondary market on eBay and ComC. And then probably from August or September on, I was buying them direct from Topps through the rest of the run.
Nice.
Yeah, I like it.
It's a nice set, and hopefully it makes a rebound with the season in full swing now. Next release, you got 2019 Panini Contenders Draft Picks Football. It comes out today. Almost 150 a box, 6 packs per box, 18 cards per pack, 6 autos, 5 insert and or parallel. Let me pull up a preview here to flip through. 303 card base sets, combo of NFL players, college unis, as well as draft prospects, and they are hard signed college ticket autos. I'm not sure if in like the past they had the okay, I killed that. Wherein, you know, the parallels were season ticket, Game Pass, you know, Super Bowl ticket, etc. Screen share you, boop, boop. You think I'd have this pre-ready and all, but no, No, on the fly. So you got the basic preview here. Some
Now,
autos that are coming out for it.
contenders. Yeah, I know we had this conversation on the podcast quite some time ago about flagship baseball. Series 1, Series 2, and the equivalent for football being both what Donruss score contenders. That there wasn't necessarily a flagship, but there was kind of 3 or 4 different ones depending on which one you identified with. But contenders is probably one of the more sought after base sets, if I'm not mistaken.
Absolutely, especially for the rookies.
Yeah, I know quite a few people like to go after the contenders autos as being, I guess, if kind of like the Bowman ones. Contenders would be the football version of the more sought after autos if you could only have one of the rookies.
Sure, and it has been for a while. I mean, look at the Brady.
Yeah, so this will be a highly sought after, and $150 isn't bad, and it's definitely a good return. Whether you're collecting or looking to resell.
Absolutely. Next up, we got 2018-19, not 17-18. That's football. Where did 2018-19 Panini National Treasures basketball for those who have a ton of money, almost $1,400 a box per hobby, 1 pack per box, 10 cards per pack. Your essential break will be 8 auto mem, 1 printing plate, 1 base card, and or parallel. Looks like a 158 card base set, rookie patch autos and highlights naturally. Let me pull one up there. On card autos, according to Panini, these are the only rookie jumbo patch autos of the year. And it's the first National Treasure set to include Charles Barkley.
158 card base set. And then if you look at it, what was it again? 1 base card or parallel per box.
Yeah.
So at $1,400, I'm very curious to know what those base cards are going to sell for on the secondary market. It'd be kind of incredible for somebody to put together all 158 of those.
Right.
But hey, I mean, that's what we're in the hobby for, right? The chase.
Yeah, not with that set. Sorry, guys. As much as I love their cases, and in years past, National Treasures and Flawless came in like a briefcase, little thing that had styrofoam to hold the cards in place. Perfect for storing cards afterwards. I'll toss up some pictures later. But yeah, that's way too much secondary market for sure for me and for probably both of you. But
yeah, that's not one that I get at all. Although it looks like you can get some of last year's National Treasures base for about $1 on the secondary market. So
be a fun set to pursue. Yeah,
everybody's chasing the autos and the relics and rookie patch autos and all that kind of stuff. The base cards, even though they're numbered, you can still get pretty cheap.
And if you're lucky enough, one of our friends, Eric, who you find at Van the Man on Twitter, he helps out at our local card shop, and a lot of these high rollers that roll in there and open these cases just kind of toss everything towards him here. So, if you're lucky and you happen to see one of these opened at an LCS, who knows? You might be lucky enough to where a guy just hands you all the base. Not that there's much of it, but
there's 4 per case.
Yeah. It's just amazing to me. I love National Treasures, but I also like building base sets.
Yep.
So this is definitely not a set that's conducive to that, but they are pretty looking cards, though.
Absolutely. Rolling on, what's brewing for next week's release? You got 2019 Super Break The Bar Cuts Edition. Releases May 1st. In years past, that's one of those where it has a subject of, say, Ted Williams, and it has a little cut of either his signature or like a news clipping, or kind of an interesting idea, but you can see why it's not a major company release.
Do we know who's behind that? I mean, is it just a company called Super Break?
I think so.
Interesting.
followed by, speaking of, Panini Score Football releases same day, May 1st. And then 1819 Leaf Ultimate Hockey. And Leaf has posted several of these pictures from that set. They look amazing, but yeah, we'll see what they look like next week.
Very good. So that brings us to our infield chatter. We've got a couple of interesting topics. Mike and I will try not to rip each other's head off here in a little bit on one of our topics. But 2019 Bowman. So we know Mike has broken products in the past, such as Heritage and a few others. Did you have a chance? Did you choose to pass on Bowman?
I hard passed on Bowman.
Yeah,
as far as a team set goes, or
well, I intend to pick it up off eBay.
Gotcha.
But
yeah, I had a case pre-ordered at pretty close to wholesale, like the actual distributor price, and then as it went up and up and up, I got pretty excited, and then I had an offer for a cash and cards deal where I'd be able to get more cash than I paid to pre-order it, and get a big collection of cards as well. And I just couldn't pass up on the guaranteed profit and not have to do any work, and figure I'll pick up a set on eBay or something like that on the aftermarket, so I'll still have the set to put away. But I just couldn't pass up on that, and so no, I didn't open any sealed wax this year.
What's the nicest you got in the trade?
I'm still going through it. There's a whole bunch of basin inserts from the last couple of years, and then there's a 2-row of autos and relics.
wow.
I think most of it is lower end autos and relics, but I did catch a Leaf hockey card with a Gordie Howe relic in it that I think is numbered to 5 maybe, and so I haven't had a chance to price it yet, but that might be one of the nicer ones that I saw in my quick glance. And so
Nice.
yeah, I haven't had a chance to go through it all yet.
And do you know what, if anything, came out of the case?
Yeah, there was a Wander Blue, I believe, that came out of the case, which one of my buddies ended up opening at the LCS, and he already flipped that as well, and locked in his profit on that one.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, I told myself on Bowman I'm not doing the parallels this year. I got pretty deep last year into some of these, and here I am with the camo set sitting next to me and a couple of other colored parallels, and I did it anyway. Even though I was like, Ben, you're not doing it, and then here Ben's like, oh hey, this is a pretty color, let's do this. So, what do you make of the
crazy
prices?
thing about that? I was going to say the crazy thing about that was that even with that blue Wander in it, I would have made a profit based on what I paid because I locked in at that pre-order cost. But even with that card at full retail, it still wouldn't have been a profitable case for anybody paying full retail for those boxes. Even with that card being in, that's just how crazy the price went. I mean, it was going almost over double, almost triple what the wholesale tops cost was.
No, there was a guy that I was discussing along with a couple other people yesterday. I think it was Game On Cards, I believe, and then our friend Joey at Dub Mentality hopped in there as well, and we were kind of discussing. His point was it was like $475 a box at his LCS. He goes, which is insane, and it's like, well, most companies operate on about a 30% profit margin in a retail market, and the issue is if that was his rebuy, then he was probably paying $350, $370 per box, and when you put 30% on top of that, you're going to hit close to $475, and it's not. I mean, I think that based on what some of the other prices were from like Dave and Adams and stuff, that was about a 35% profit margin. But it's not insane to think about that being a reasonable price, considering what he probably paid when he double dipped into the market, and bought a second time.
Yeah, yeah, the secondary market or even the reorder market was just so high this year.
So what do we make of the Franco, the Bart, some of these other guys, the no name guys that nobody's heard of really, selling for stupid prices?
I think that's a new, not necessarily a new thing for that set, but I think it's part and parcel of some newer people getting in, trying to break to get that huge. And mind you, this is a stronger rookie class, and those naturally drive sales, but it's definitely seems a bit excessive, way beyond means.
What are your thoughts, Mike?
Yeah, I was with you guys last week when you were talking about this, and I mean, I get the fun of prospecting, like I get the fun of trying to figure out who's going to be the next big thing, but at the prices that Bowman is going at, I just don't get it. Like, I had made a comment last week that I think Tim talked about where, I said, why am I supposed to be excited about Franco again? He's a 250 batter in Class A and hasn't hit any home runs this year. And had a few people saying they agreed and some other people jumping all over me of, don't you know, he's only 18 and all this. And my whole thing with the comment to begin with was, with the price that his autos and everything were selling at, you can get vintage Hall of Fame rookie cards or multiple Hall of Fame autos of guys who have proven they're going to be and are all-time greats, right? And so I'm not saying the guy's not going to ever be good, but my money's going to go with the Hall of Famer vintage or certified Hall of Fame autos anytime over an 18-year-old unproven prospect.
Well, I had mentioned to Steph, he and I both have an affinity for Walter Johnson. And I have a friend who could probably get him a T206 Walter Johnson for around 250, 275. Would you rather have a Walter Johnson T206 and $1,000 in your pocket, or a Wander Franco card that was literally off the press, 2 weeks ago and opened up last week? Well, which one would we want long term?
Obviously, the Wander Franco.
Of course. I mean, I knew you of all people, you being a big Tampa Bay Ray fan too. So
all three of us.
Yeah, the Tampa Bay. I had somebody revisit that post today, and after he hit his first home run of the year, and saying it would, something along the lines of, "Would you like to reconsider this post or something?" And I said, "Well, you got me. He is now joined the elite club of 70 other Class A Midwest leaguers with one home run."
You're
and
right.
So, he has hit. He has been hitting. He is up to over 300 at the batting average now instead of 250 or whatever it was last week. But they just won't. They're completely missing the point. It's not that he won't be good or that I don't want him to do good or make the bigs or whatever. It's just when you compare the prices that he's selling at to what you could get with even established current veterans. I'm going to take the established guys all the time.
No, as a team collector, I would rather overpay on, say, a Matt Chapman Bowman Chrome Auto rookie. Now that he's hit it big, I'd rather go back and have to overpay for current market worth than to overpay 5 years ago. I mean, if this kid doesn't hit, his cards are going to be worth nothing in a couple of years. I'll buy. If I'm a Rays fan, I'll buy it then. Or in a couple of years, if he's the next Mike Trout, cool. Then guess what? Either I don't get one, or I have to pay a multiplier of 2, 3, 4 times what I can get one for right now.
Yeah, Todd Van Poppel and Brian Taylor come calling.
Oh, absolutely. And as an A's fan, heck, I mean, we've traded the last 7 first-round picks we've had before most of them hit the majors. Billy McKinney and Addison Russell et al. I mean, come on. It's like, let's wait for this kid to do something. And yeah, he did hit a home run, so that's in your face, Mike.
Well, yeah, and last year, the other point that the guy made was last year he had 19 home runs in only 60 games. So my whole assertion was out the door, bogus, and I kind of wanted to say, well, Tuffy Rhodes hit 3 home runs in 1 game, And, does that make him the GOAT? No, it didn't. Other things happened. So,
well,
but yeah.
Where did he hit these home runs? Was it in like the Appalachian League where balls just kind of fly out, pop-ups to the pitcher's mound? Oh, that's a 350-foot home run. You have to consider the variables, like what's his competition level, what are the ballparks he's hitting in, because that does play into it before we just unilaterally say, oh, this guy's going to be the next Hall of Famer. It's like, let's look at the numbers a little closer. And that's why I say numbers always lie. There's always more to the story. So is this a bubble, or is this going to be kind of what we see for Bowman for the next few years and beyond?
I can't wait to see what it does with Bowman Chrome and Bowman Draft, let alone next few years.
I think it seems like it's turned into a little bit of a Bowman bubble. I mean, last year everything was selling high, sealed. The pre-orders were up. Retail was always up at the beginning until the kind of latter half of the year. Heritage High and Update started to come down. Their sealed prices came down, but Bowman Draft was still high. This year we saw Top Series 1 is real cheap now, relatively speaking, compared to what it was at release day, and is well within range of what the wholesale cost is. Heritage was high for a while, but it's started to come down into the reasonable range. But Bowman is just through the roof, and so I've got a feeling that we're kind of in a Bowman bubble right now. But some of the rest of the baseball market seems to be moderating a little bit, at least when it comes to sealed stuff.
To me, it just seems like, all right, you have Amazon, Apple stock, all these major companies, and then you have the little startup across the street into the garage, and you're like, I'm going to pay Amazon and Apple prices just in case that startup by my buddy across the street turns into the next Amazon. And at the end of the day, it's just people paying stupid prices. I just hope that people are smart enough and do their homework before, really going out and buying Bowman, because I think it's artificially trending upwards, and I don't see it stopping anytime soon. But what do we think the short-term, long-term effects on the hobby are with just Bowman specifically?
I hope that it doesn't catch on, but as something that he hit on, that the sets themselves do seem to this year and the last year or so to bubble up as soon as the set's released, but they come back down to earth. And Bone being Bowman, the rookie set, unfortunately, I think that probably stays true for that, and it's offshoots, Bowman Draft, Bowman Chrome. But I don't see it staying for like Allen and Ginter. Maybe Update. Depends where Vladdy goes.
Absolutely. What about you, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, I think the short-term effects, I think there's going to be a lot of people that get burnt because, as we kind of talked about, when you're paying over $100 in auto, you don't know what you're getting. There's not going to be a whole lot of people who are going to be feeling like they got their money's worth out of buying boxes of this stuff. And so I think, there's going to be a lot of people that get burned a little bit, and it's going to leave a bad taste in their mouth. So I think, like I said, we're already starting to see some of that stabilization in the other product lines. Bowman seems to be the last one where there's still a lot of hype and speculation. But it's, as a couple people are saying, it's that lotto ticket mentality that Bowman seems to have. Everybody going after the next big thing, and there's just not that many big things for people to get.
No, I mean, only time will tell ultimately where this ends up, short term, long term. I mean, at the end of the day, it's caveat emptor. It's buyer beware. It's your money, spend how you want, but understand that you really are buying a lottery ticket, high-priced lottery ticket. You're not buying a $1 or $2 scratch or a Powerball. You're spending hundreds, if not thousands, of dollars on something that may be selling at multipliers of tens above what it should be So, hey, good luck to everybody that dives in, and I'll be there to clean up the scraps on the back end. I'll wait a couple years and go back and pick up all the guys that I didn't grab.
Well, crap.
So,
hockey game's over.
Washington win?
Nope.
Son of a gun. All right, moving on. Our buddy Ryan Cracknell has an awesome suggestion. I think for a long time we've kind of looked at Topps Archives as a dying product. They're using 4 different historic sets each year. So year over year, first year you got 4, by year 2 you've got 8, so on and so forth. After 5 years, you've kind of hit all the designs that are fun to go back and look at. I think this year has 92 or 93 tops. Does anybody want to go back and collect that yet? I don't think it's really something we need to see modern day players on. That's too new of a card for a lot of us, or this particular set.
I don't think you understand. We need all of the 1987 parallels.
We do, absolutely. You are right. Last year we obviously had that blip where retail came out far before hobby, like 2 or 3 months early. It kind of killed hobby, so to speak. Ryan's suggestion to Topps for 2020 archives: what if you did base sets with designs from other sports? Obviously, Topps has the Throwback Thursday, and a lot of those are fantastic. They're fresh, and they won't create an overlap with heritage, and they're still going to bring the nostalgia. And the idea behind it might keep archives alive for a few more years. I mean, there were some really cool Throwback Thursday sets. My dad actually just picked up. There was a 1958 Westerns set he's looking to try to put together, and 2016 Throwback Thursday, I think it was like the 3rd set ever made, had the Gunslingers, which featured Nolan Ryan and Clayton Kershaw, Jake Arrieta, Steven Strasburg. And it's the same design. It's kind of neat. And he picked up those 6 cards just recently. What if we did football, hockey, non-sports? The A team was really cool last year. They did one with 6 players with the last name A, like Ronald Acuna. What do you guys think about Ryan's suggestion?
It's not a bad idea, and it would definitely be a nice change of pace. There's some sets that I just collect because they are gorgeous looking. Some of the NBA and hockey sets of the early 70s, or I'm not a huge football collector, but I will collect 1985 Topps. Nearly done, but that's just because of the eye appeal, as Eric would say. But I don't know if it saves archives. It would definitely breathe in new life.
I think it can save it at least for a couple of years, and or at least extend it a little bit. I think I like the idea. I think the current product has too much overlap with heritage, and so I think this, like he said, still gives you that retro feel, or the nostalgia feel, with a design that you're familiar with, but it's not that direct overlap with heritage. So, or the other insert sets that we've been having on flagship, I like the idea.
No, I think we all agree. I mean, I don't think anybody could argue that it's a bad idea. You don't
absolutely
have to like archives, but it definitely would at least breathe a little bit of life. And I said Gunslingers, I believe I meant flamethrowers. So thanks for sharing that, Steph. It's neat. Who wouldn't want a mid '80s football set or an old hockey design? It can't hurt at the very least, I guess. Either it helps it or it doesn't. But ultimately, this set's on its way out, so you might as well try to do something else moving forward. So moving on to something that's been going on. There was a lawsuit against Panini in regards to redemption. So we'll briefly kind of give an overview of. Basically, there were 2 individuals who filed a class action lawsuit stating that Panini's inclusion of redemptions are fraudulent and or false advertisement, and that they are not fulfilling them in a timely manner, thus causing damages and financial hardships to the redeemer, as the secondary market can lead to a decrease in anticipated or perceived values, thus causing a loss to the redeemer. So that's a real small summation of what the lawsuit is as a whole. Recently, I believe this week, Panini filed a motion to dismiss the case. Basically, Panini stating that the plaintiffs have no proof. They've not proven their case because they can't. Panini suggests that this is not a class action lawsuit, but should be taken up in small claims court instead. Panini does get some, not all, out in a timely manner as far as redemptions go. So you can't unilaterally say it's across the board. Redemptions are reliant upon the actions of third-party participants, the players or subjects, and cannot guarantee fulfillment timelines. Panini offers replacements in lieu of the listed players in a timely manner, which is unsatisfactory to these plaintiffs according to their lawsuit. I believe Panini states within a 4 to 8 month window, you can thus file for a replacement if your particular player on your redemption has not been fulfilled. Panini states that the redemption program is not fraudulent or illegal. They place no aggregate value in the secondary market, thus there's no anticipated gain or loss, which cannot be quantifiably measured. Customers got exactly what they paid for, which is a sealed pack of cards or a box that they may or may not get a redemption in. And it does state that on the back of the box, if I'm not mistaken. Cards used as examples in the lawsuit were not shown to have been owned and redeemed by the two plaintiffs. And the ones that they did show ownership of had yet to be fulfilled, but they hadn't yet expired. So essentially they were using cards that doesn't aid their position. They were just kind of throwing those out there as examples for the court. And in order to proceed as a class action lawsuit, plaintiffs must show 100 plus members in the suit with losses over $5 million. Panini alleges that would, simple math, would be 200,000 unfulfilled redemptions if they use an average pack value of $25. Can you complain when the disclaimers are written on the outside of their products? Basically, again, you should know what you're buying. So I'm going to ask you guys, what are your thoughts? Isn't the onus on the buyer to know what they're buying and that the product might contain redemptions and older boxes that are, basically a redemption generally has a 2-year window before it expires. So if you're buying something from 2015, 2016, knowingly, shouldn't you know that if, hey, there's a redemption in there, you're not going to be able to redeem it? So what are your guys' thoughts on this lawsuit and potential dismissal?
So I didn't fully read through the documents, but I had Angela flip through it real quick, and I'll read her quick summary. Essentially, the lawsuit itself, redemption. She thinks that they're trying to kill redemptions, which is essentially true. It's kind of the worst part of the hobby in that you either get what you want, it's available, or you have to wait 5 years for somebody to sign their cards, like we touched on last week. And I mean, the card companies are going to do what they can to get those out, but it's unfortunate that sometimes it takes longer than expected. We all wish that you'd get the on-card autos, but unfortunately, again, that doesn't happen always. And then Panini's response is that we won't hear much until the sit-downs with lawyers and discussions and recordings are held, that it's just an incendiary rhetoric to get the case started. And Panini's essentially saying, go show off prove it, or not up or shut up.
No, absolutely. What are your thoughts, Mike?
Yeah, I can't stand redemptions to begin with. Personally, if I ever get one, I try to sell it as quick as I can.
But so, is it a team card if you hold on to the redemption piece, the redemption card?
Yeah.
Does that need to be in the player collection? Sorry, no. I'll stop.
No. Yeah, I just don't like them to begin with, and so for me, I think I get the issue. I think for me comes down to whether Panini in this case or Topps in general, if you talk about redemptions in a broader perspective, whether they're doing it with the intention of knowing they're not going to have to to redeem some of those. If they're viewing it as an expense saver because we can stick this redemption in, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. We might have to exchange some. We don't have to exchange others, and we're going to be better off than having to pay somebody else for their auto to send it back. If there's intentional manipulation there, that they're using it as a way to make it seem like they're offering more autographs or relic cards or whatever it might be, typically autos, but they have every intention of not having to fulfill all those because they know they'll get some back and some will go unopened and unexpired and will expire. Then I think you might have a case, but it's going to be pretty tough to prove that. But otherwise, yeah, like you said, buyer beware. If they know that they're guaranteed that redemption could be one of their guaranteed hits, then yeah, to some extent, it's up to the buyer to know what they're buying. But at the end of the day, if there's manipulation on behalf of the companies, then I think there might be a case.
Well, and it would definitely be hard to prove unless you have somebody inside who's willing to speak on it in a negative light. I just don't think that they can prove that in the case itself. And to put a comparison out, buying a box nowadays, like we touched on in Bowman, is kind of like buying a scratch-off lottery ticket. You might get $1, but you're shooting for that $1,500. Now, the redemptions, obviously, if you pull them, you're promised that, but you might get the $1. And it's unfortunate that those are in the hobby. I hate that, but it's going to be interesting as the case unfolds.
I got into the hobby scams page on Facebook. I got into a conversation with quite a few people after they had posted the lawsuit, and people had read through it, and I basically said, here's what because I do have a degree in economics. If I was put on the stand to argue alongside the defendant, I would basically say this. Okay, so you pull the redemption today with the idea that it has a perceived value attached. If it was a live card, you're going to sell it today for whatever today's market worth is. The lawsuit's basically saying that if I pulled it today, but you redeem it 6 months from now, it potentially could have depreciated in value to where I now have a financial loss or an anticipated financial loss, thus causing a mental anguish, which is also part of their lawsuit. That's what they're alleging, is these phantom losses and mental anguish as a result. So let's say that I pull this card and it's, I throw it up on eBay and I can sell it for $1,000. And 6 months from now, I get the live card and now it's only worth $200. Well, I've lost 800%. I've lost $800 against this perceived value, which I never had to begin with. It's all phantom money. If I was on there, I would say, now what happens if you pulled that card today and it was live and you threw it up on eBay for $1,000, you got $1,000. What if 6 months from now you put it up there and now it's worth $2,000? Now what? Your argument is invalid because it can just as easily as appreciate as it can depreciate in value. So what my thought would be, and this is what I would ask the plaintiff, is you're prepared to write me a check for $1,000, right? And you can make that out to Panini America Inc. And I'm going to take that to the bank right now. Essentially, perceived value is only as good as the day it's listed. It's a fluid market, and that's exactly what I would explain as a fluid market and how it affects perceived value. Essentially, you bought a pack of cards for $5. It doesn't matter what is in that. Panini even outlines that in their dismissal. You're basically saying the redemption card is the only thing of value within the pack in which it was pulled, and you're dismissing the value of anything else in there. And the other thing where I think that this particular lawsuit missed the mark, and I was discussing this a little bit with Paul Lesko, who's a hobby lawyer who deals a lot with the hobby. Essentially, I would have attacked the oligopoly. You have only a handful of companies who are allowed to make cards within this hobby based on exclusive agreements with MLB, NBA, NHL, and the NFL. And I would have said, look, if I don't like McDonald's, I can go to Burger King. If I hate Nike, guess what? I'll wear Adidas. But if I want to collect football cards, I'm kind of at the mercy of Panini. And if Panini is putting redemptions in there and making my collecting, casting a negative light upon my collecting experience to the point where I'm willing to exit the hobby because I cannot go to somewhere else, that's what I would have argued. I would have asked the lawyers, let's attack the exclusivity of the licenses, and not just Panini, but Topps and Upper Deck as well. And Paul had pointed out that there is actually a lawsuit between Upper Deck and Leaf that kind of touches on that. That's currently in the process, and not everything is open to the public as far as the arguments back and forth. So we're going to have to wait until the final rulings on that. But
is that the one over? Is that the one that's over hockey?
It is over hockey, and if you read, Paul had written a piece for Cardboard Connection. If anybody wants to read it, definitely you can hit me up, or I can have the About the Cards Twitter handle, tweet that out so you can read up on it. But Leaf is alleging that Upper Deck said a lot of slanderous type comments and other things that kind of ruin Leaf's reputation. So it's not just an oligopoly lawsuit, but that's what I would have attacked. I would have tried to say, look, they're not only putting redemptions in there, but I can't go to another manufacturer if I want to collect football because it's not available. So I'm literally either at their mercy, or I have to exit the hobby altogether or choose a different portion of the hobby. But now I go to Topps and now it's just baseball. So that's how I would have approached it. To me, it just kind of seems frivolous, and it's just like a crybaby. It's like, hey, you got me a redemption, and I allegedly lost money. I mean, the burden of proof on this case is going to be ridiculous and insurmountable as far as I can see.
Most definitely.
You guys have any other thoughts on this lawsuit? I know it's still ongoing, so it's kind of difficult to discuss other than kind of in the abstract.
Right. And I think this is a good time to bring it up in that we have the initial filing and now Panini's response. But, I mean, without actually seeing it to resolution or a settlement out of court, there's really not all much we can add except for, hey, here it is, and here's the response.
Yep, I'm with you.
Yeah, and I think Mike now has a copy. I have a copy. Steph has a copy. So if anybody's out there that hasn't read it, you can either ask Paul Lesko on Twitter or one of us, and we can definitely share it via email. Definitely worth the read. And we do have the initial lawsuit as well as Panini's dismissal request to the court. So you can kind of see the back and forth of it, at least as far as it's gone thus far. So it'll be kind of interesting to see if they filed in the state of Texas with a couple of Texas-specific laws also alleging that Panini is in violation of. So definitely an interesting read if you've got some time and you kind of want to catch yourself up to speed. So Mike, I'll let you kind of take over. Gary Vaynerchuk had made some comments, about a week and a half ago now, I think, via the Rich Eisen show. And it is hobby specific and it's kind of lingered. And as soon as, it just kind of seems like it's ebb and flow. As soon as it seems like it goes away, somebody else makes a comment in relation to what he said. So if you want to give a little bit of back information on what he said, and kind of catch any listener up to speed that may not have heard it.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting. And so, on the Rich Eisen show, that this was the clip that got a lot of people buzzing. He made a comment that he was, his opinion was that the sports card market was going to have a resurgence over the next few years due to a variety of factors. Some of the things that we've even talked about before, but middle-aged people who grew up where cards were in their heyday, coming into a little more disposable income. He talked about the kind of the shoe flipping market of people who are flipping shoes, some of the high-end basketball shoes and stuff like that, not getting enough product and are looking for something else to flip, and that some of them would come over into the sports card market. But he was mainly talking about high-end graded rookies. So LeBron rookies, Kobe rookies, Giannis rookies. And that was kind of where his focus was on this particular show. And I think that caught a lot of people off. And so there's a lot of debate on, or that I saw a lot of debate on, are sports cards an investment? Do you define them as an investment? If they are an investment, are they a good investment? What's his motives behind all this? And I just found it pretty interesting. I mean, I'm not a Gary V OG. I haven't listened to him for years and years, but I do get his podcast, and I've watched a lot of his YouTube stuff over the last probably 5 or 6 months or so. And for perspective, he's talked about sports cards for months. His origin story talks about he first started making money as a kid buying and selling baseball cards. So this clip last week was not the first time that he's been talking about cards. I mean, he's been talking about cards for months. I remember even last year, there was conversation that he was one of the people who was inquiring about the opportunity to purchase Topps when it was rumored to be for sale. So he's been in cards for a long time, and so it just seemed interesting that people are latching on to those two things now. And even I think April 6th, or even earlier this month, were some of his first kind of more public tweets specifically about cards. So I've been interacting a little bit on some of those threads, but was just curious on what you guys' thoughts were.
So I'll admit I'm not all that caught up with him. Like you said, you're not the VOG, so to speak. But I've kept a kind of closer eye on what he said, hobby related wise, and I can see, at least from what I know of sneakerheads, the point that if they do it the same way, they can make some money. But unfortunately, the vast majority of people that are going to try that aren't going to make as much immediately, just because, unlike shoes, there's not really a ebbs and flows as far as price. I mean, a Michael Jordan pair of shoes is still going to be whatever price today, tomorrow, whatever. If they won't lose value, barring some extreme circumstances. Whereas, if Mike Trout goes out tomorrow and blows out his knee and never plays again, his cards might still be worth some, but they're not going to be, 10, 20 years down the line what they would be had he not. Now, of course, naturally, I'm knocking on wood because I wish that on no one, but
no, but things happen.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, that's why in baseball right now you're seeing all these guys signing these extensions. We saw what happened in free agency. It was definitely lukewarm.
What didn't happen?
Yeah, it would be very favorable to say the least. But look at Jacob deGrom signs a contract extension, and now he's getting an MRI and might need a second Tommy John surgery. I mean, you never know. Nobody's rooting for this. Even if the player plays for your hated rival, you don't want to see that human being go through something like that. But, I admire Gary Vaynerchuk as an entrepreneur. I used to own a business. I can see what he's doing, and he's obviously much more successful at his day job than I am at mine. I mean, we are in different socioeconomic classes with a lot of distance between mine and his. Where I took issue, and I had tweeted that I thought it was both careless and reckless, what he said, was more to speak to who's going to see it. He was definitely speaking to the gamblers and the shoe flippers, basically saying they can't get that much inventory. You can come into this hobby and get 1,000 cards immediately that potentially could appreciate in value, that you could flip for, a 50%, 100%, profit, and then turn around and reinvest that money and get more. And there's a finite amount of shoes. And I understood who he was speaking to, but, he had mentioned, and that's where I really took issue, was he's like, a $50,000 Zion Williamson card is going to come out of a $6 pack. And then he didn't tell the rest of the story. Like, yeah, but there's going to be 20, 30, 40,000 packs of that available? Where are the pack odds? What is it going to take for you to be able to pull one? For every one Zion, there's going to be hundreds and thousands of cards out there that are not worth the cost of the pack itself in the resale market. And when I say careless and reckless, it's like 98% of the people that are going to hear that Rich Eisen spot for 3 minutes are going to look at it and go, I can do that too. And he's speaking to a different socioeconomic class with his words, but the listeners are going to go, me too. And I'm just afraid that Joe Blow is going to go spend his next check, which is supposed to be his mortgage money, and go buy the Bowman that we were talking about, hoping to hit that Wander Franco. I'm going to turn $400 tomorrow into $1,500 because Gary said I could. And I'd said something out on Twitter like either there's more Wander Franco cards in Bowman than there should be, or literally everyone that's been pulled I've seen, because it just seems like everybody is pulling one. And I was at Walmart earlier this afternoon, and I looked to see if there was any Bowman. That is not me. I'm not that guy. But here I am looking anyway. And
But did they have any?
They didn't have any. And I had talked to Heather, and I had said, if they have one, I'll probably blow $20. And our 5-year-old son Bentley, she's like, Bentley would love to open it with you. And everything out of that box would have ended up in his binders anyway, unless I had pulled something. So it was. I'm going in knowing that I'm blowing $20. I even sent her a text message saying, "Hey, it's going to be a waste of $20. 99.9% sure." And she goes, "Whatever." But I'm afraid that what his words are going to resound with certain people that aren't going to know. The casual person that's going to say, "Maybe I can go get rich."
Do your research.
Yeah, but I think that's the case with most people. I mean, we just got done talking about the lottery ticket mentality of Bowman. I don't think that the fact that that's the impression that some people are going to get from his clip moves the needle. I think the people that are opening some of that high end stuff anyway, that are buying these $300, $400, $500, $600, $1,200, $1,500 boxes, they're not doing it because Gary Vee said to do it. They're doing it already because they view it as a lotto ticket. And so I wish there was more time than the 3 to 5 minute clip or whatever, that he had. But like I said, he's been talking about kind of a resurgence in sports cards for at least the last couple months, that I've been listening. And so my thing was that he seemed to focus and feel like that resurgence is only going to be on the high end. And I feel like it's more broad than that. I think we're going to see, or we've already started to see, a resurgence on a lot of the middle and low end type stuff too. And so that was more of where my frustration was, or maybe disagreement with him was, not so much frustration, is I think we are seeing and will see a continued growth in the middle and low market as well.
No, to me, I saw where he was going with it, and I appreciated his thoughts. I really did, even though my tweets might suggest otherwise. And sometimes that's just because that's how a tweet or written text comes across, right? A lot of times the intent, the inflection of the sarcasm behind some of the words, sometimes it's really easy to get lost and can come across and perceived by the reader as different. So there's a great line in The West Wing where President Bartlett makes a comment about, in my household, you don't say one word when 10 words will suffice. In other words, you're not allowed to say one word when more are available. Yep. And to me, it was the 3 minute spot on a subject that he could have spoken very eloquently and educated on for 20 or 30 minutes and explain, like, hey, don't go out there and spend $6 expecting to get the $50,000 card. There's going to be a finite amount of these available. Understand that one of these might only be available every 6,000 packs. And to me, if I'm not educated within the hobby, I might now listen to that. Maybe I'm just getting back into the hobby. And I go, oh, okay. So there's a chance, but odds are very highly against it. And
yeah, sure.
I think some of the words were kind of crisscrossing themselves we collectively might have understood. And when I say collectively, I'm saying the majority of our friends on Twitter and whatnot. It's the guys that heard it that might not be as educated or familiar with the hobby. The outsiders that might be coming in trying to make a quick buck. I also tweeted that I thought Gary was 2 years late on his thoughts, that I think that this, the box breaking era that we're currently in started 5-6 years ago. And that would have been more poignant time for him to have made said comments, but he made them. And Ivan did bring up a good point that he didn't really see a market on, I forget which player, if it was Kobe Bryant or whomever, LeBron. Within that 24 hours right after Gary had said it, it didn't increase any of the sold listings. So people weren't going out. It's just one of those things,
Oh no, yeah. If you read through any of the feeds on Twitter where he had made some tweets about sports cards market, there's all kinds of people that said, "You're crazy. You're way off the wall here. You don't know what you're talking about. Cards aren't worth anything. Cards are never going to be worth anything. Nobody can make any money buying and selling cards." Like, there's plenty of people in his camp, or people that at least follow him, who think he's crazy for even suggesting it. And and that's kind of where I go back to. I don't see cards as a way to get rich. I don't see it as the same type of investment that you'd be buying a stock or putting money in your 401k or IRA or anything that you're doing like that. I don't see it as that type of investment, but I think it can be a side hustle for a lot of people to add a little extra income, or at a minimum offset the cost of their hobby. So that's where I think there's opportunity there. If people take it to that extreme where they think they're gonna get rich and retire from buying some of these cards, versus using it as an opportunity to offset the cost of your hobby and maybe make a little side money, I think that's where the real rub comes in.
So we had two follow-up questions. I think we kind of lumped these all together, and I think we were going to talk about investment versus hobby, and can it be both simultaneously? And then if this is a good side hustle opportunity. So instead of asking and answering those separately, because you do buy cases, Mike, and it's self-sustaining. Personally, I see the hobby as there's 3 separate levels. There's the hobbyist, the collector that just is in this strictly to collect. That's where I would fall. I don't buy products. I just buy the cards that I'm looking for. To me, you're at level 2, which would be the person that is in the self-sustaining portion. You're both a collector and a seller, but you sell to reinvest. You're not selling to pay your mortgage or your personal bills necessarily. You're basically, if I can buy a box of Bowman, I can sell it then for a profit and get a collection. Now I've got not only the profit, I've paid myself back, but now I can reinvest that profit into more product for my personal collection.
Right.
And I have all these extra cards I can now go on eBay or Sport Lots or Twitter and sell for a profit. But at the end of the day,
never on Twitter.
Okay.
I will not sell on Twitter, or I may get in trouble. I'll never be asked to be on this show again.
I don't like people that sell on Twitter. Occasionally, it's the people that have an account strictly to sell and refuse to put them in the same thread. Just put them in the same thread, and I'm good with it. And say, hey, Ben, look through this 40 tweets and see if there's anything you want. I don't need to see 40 individual tweets.
Just
put them in the same thread, man. And there's my rant for the night. Once a Cub says I rant too much, and I told him tonight I would rant about him calling me out about ranting. So the first one is the collector, the second one is the self-sustaining portion of the hobby, and then the third one is the investor. I've always argued you cannot have both an investment and a hobby. You can't make money off of your hobby, because once you do, then you have to report it to the IRS, and once you involve the IRS, it's called a job. and it's reportable income, and it's no longer a hobby. A hobby is something you do for relaxation, for to be cathartic. It's to relax. It's to enjoy. You can cross that line, and I think that's where you're at in the self-sustaining aspect of, if my hobby can pay for itself, and I can open packs and resell the stuff and get what I want out of it, and I never have to go tap into the paycheck. I think that's a good world to live in. Or you have the investor, which is the Gary V crowd, the people that are just looking to invest their money and cash out and rinse and repeat.
Yeah, I definitely am in that, level 2, as you described it, where I'm either buying and selling collections or buying and selling some of the sealed stuff, and with the intent of hopefully making it self-sustaining and making a little extra. And yeah, at times having to put a little extra income there on the tax forms when I filed, because it was a good year. And so, that's what I've been able to do. And that's, when I try to help some other people understand, is if you do it right and you're smart about it, you can make it a self-sustaining hobby, and slowly build and grind your way up if you're willing to put in the work. It was about 3 years ago when I got back into collecting, kind of 2016. And that's when I started to do some of the buying some with the intent to sell to offset that cost. And, I think some of those initial purchases were, I think my cash outlay was probably less than $200 for all of that. And that's turned into quite a bit more than that now on an ongoing basis, plus all my inventory that I've got on Sport Lots and ComC and eBay. And so, it's, if you're willing to put in the work, you can do it and make a little money and offset your cost, and it's still fun. It's still, a hobby, even though I'm, as you said, having to report that on my income taxes. It's still a hobby because I'm still having fun. It's not my career. It's not my sole source of income. I'm not viewing it as my retirement planning. But it is it's been a good side hustle for me.
What are your thoughts, Steph?
Like I said, it's great if you can do it, and it's definitely a opportunity. I'm personally not all that invested and organized to be able to do it on the side. I'd rather pay someone else to do it, which is where certain websites come in handy. But jokes. No, it's not for me, but I can see the opportunity for others. Our special guest this week is an obvious example. Whether you're going to the show or whether you're selling it on a website or through sorry, Angela just came in here. Whether you're doing it through a show, whether you're doing it through a website, whether you're doing it through Twitter to annoy Ben, it would definitely be an opportunity for some, but it's not for me. But let's hear more of the success stories, if there are any.
Well, what's funny is somebody hit me up today and asked me some questions about Sport Lots, and I said I am not the person, and I actually sent them to you, Mike, and told him to check out your blog and ask you any questions if he was looking to sell. I was like, hey, if you're looking to buy, I've bought plenty off Sport Lots. I can walk you through how to try to minimize the amount of sellers that you're buying from to save on shipping costs. But if anybody out there is listening wants to potentially try to turn this into a self-sustaining hobby to pay for themselves, that way you're not coming out of, Tim and I have discussed options to pay for a trip to the National in 2 years through a side hustle, selling cards around the house that we don't want or need, or even going thrifting and buying stuff to resell on eBay. I've told a few people, Mike, that you're a great resource as to how to get started. And the main thing is they're going to have to understand patience.
Yep.
It's not like you're just going to be able to go out and buy $100 worth of resellable items or cards or whatever it is, throw it up on eBay, turn it into $500 and go cha-ching. Our friend Ken is another one who's done the thrifting avenue, and it's cool when you buy an item for $1.50, you sell it for $10, but understand you're going to have a garage full of stuff that's going to sit for a while. You have to know what to buy, what people are after, and it always comes back to education. Do your homework before you do it, right?
Yeah, I love it. Like I said, I'd love to talk. I last weekend I put up an article on the website about kind of, does it really take money to make money, and just kind of talked a little bit about that grind that I've had over the last couple of years to get to the level that I'm at now, having the fun that I'm having now. And subsequent to that, I've had several kind of both Twitter or email conversations with people who have been asking more about it and want to learn more about it and understand more. And I'm definitely happy to chat about it whenever, share what I've learned so far, and help other people see where some of those opportunities might be, or better understand, like you said, what it takes, if that's something that you want to go after, or a challenge you want to set for yourself. And so, yeah, by all means, reach out. I'm happy to chat.
No, that's awesome. So, if you haven't listened to Gary V's spot, definitely give it a listen, see what you think. You're welcome to share your thoughts on Twitter with all of us. We'd love to get into it one way or the other. And at the end of the day, there's no right or wrong about what he said. A lot of it's, any information can be gold if taken by somebody and taken in the right direction. And it also can be a fool's errand if you misunderstand it or misuse it. So he didn't say anything wrong. Just I think there was more to the story. I think he gave us 3 pieces of a 100-piece puzzle, and I just pray that there are people out there that don't try to run to the bank and empty a savings account buying Bowman or any other product, hoping to hit that $50,000 Zion. Yep. And like I said about the blaster, I was going to spend $20 knowing darn well I was wasting $20. If I hit something, great. But if it was, what would be the difference between the 3 of us going out to Starbucks right now, right? Right, Mike? What goes in must come out.
That's right.
There's a meme floating around that my wife got flowing around that my wife got a lot of amusement out of.
As you just said, talent matters. No, knowledge and research matters.
Yeah, not everybody is meant to be a salesman, and as good of a salesman as I've been in the past, selling shoes, that type of a hustle, that's not my level of sales talent. I'm more methodic, where I need to explain something to people and get them to buy in. I can't just go out and take something and, there are people that can do that, and man, they're impressive. People, that car salesman that can sell you anything, that politician, that's not me necessarily. Stay in your lane. So as we move on, the NFL draft starts tomorrow, goes through Saturday, I believe. How do you guys think this affects the hobby? Football card collecting.
I think that a good majority of people were already going to spend money on the sets that this draft produces, or not spend money, depending on the draft class. I'm not all that hip to the lingo, as they say, as far as who's coming in and who's coming out. But it's one of the bigger pushes for a set, in that, again, these are going to be rookies in 2019, 2020 sets. Me personally, I don't care, because I'm not all that huge of a football guy. I can see the appeal of someone like Dub wanting to know where his Georgia players go. And I can see the appeal for player collectors, see if they go to this team, that team. But if I'm a team collector, I'm not caring who the Vikings draft in the first round. in that I was already going to collect those.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not a big NFL draft guy, especially when it comes to, is it going to impact card values? I mean, we've got some of these guys that are already out in product with no team attached to it. Some of the first products that come out, they're still going to be pictured in college uniforms anyway. I'm not sure that the draft does a whole lot when it comes to establishing any kind of hobby value for these guys, at least in the short term. Long range, when we get mid-season, where some of these guys land might influence where their value is, depending on what kind of opportunity that lands in with those teams. But I just don't see draft driving a whole lot because, like you said, the people who love the college products are going to buy the college products anyway. The people who love these first issued cards are going to buy them anyway, regardless of where these guys land.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, the follow-up question was going to be if there was going to be is this going to generate a new buzz for football collectors? I think that's probably a couple months off until we really start seeing these guys in their new colors. But at the very least, it's going to probably start those juices flowing for football card collectors to get this new draft class. Especially with the hype around. The one interesting thing is there's not a lot of quarterbacks outside of Kyler Murray. I know there's quite a few guys, Jones and Locke and Haskins and Greer, but it's such a defensive heavy draft. There's not a lot of skill players, not a lot of wide receivers, running backs. Josh Jacobs might end up at the end of the first round as a running back, but that could potentially have kind of a slower curve to this class just because there aren't a ton of top players. Assuming Murray goes number one, the next guys on the list are going to be defensive players, offensive linemen, until that second quarterback goes, which might be a top 10 pick too. But, it just seems when all is said and done, 25 of these guys might be on the offensive line or defensive players, other than the two tight ends, of course.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
As I say, I don't think there's going to be any kind of near-term buzz. Like you said, it's so, it seems to be so defensive focused, plus, these early sets are just filled with guys who won't even make a roster. There's the autos are so many of these guys maybe will make a practice squad. So I just don't see the buzz.
Do you think with the hype that surrounds the draft, I mean, the NFL draft is like none of the others. Obviously, baseball, because it takes a lot of these guys 3-5 years. Most of them flame out. The NBA draft is, got maybe a 1 month window, but everybody and their brother comes up with an NFL draft. Do you guys think non-football collectors might get caught up in this buzz over the 60 days that leads up to April post Super Bowl? You think it draws anybody in, or is it just one of those things that it's not going to affect the casual collector to go out and buy something that they probably wouldn't have bought in the first place?
For the casual collector, I don't see it being a huge boom in that. Speaking for example, I follow and like the Vikings, but that doesn't mean that I'm collecting every single card that's ever produced for them.
Sure.
And if they do what they're supposed to do, hopefully they draft an O-lineman anyway. Those cards don't carry the same weight that a key quarterback or a key running back or a key wide receiver has. So I think it depends on the teams that you follow, if you follow, or what players and where they're expected to go. But someone as a outsider looking in on football, the hype's kind of overrated.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think definitely a bigger. I think there's almost a bigger hype or buzz or draws in the fantasy sports player more so than the collector, because I think I think where some of these people go has a bigger potential impact from a fantasy football perspective, but I just don't see it from a card perspective.
Absolutely.
Chris Torres in the chat says that this is a draft of backups. It's going to be tough as the year goes on. And when he says that, I'm assuming that that's related to, again, that hype. Usually we have 5, 6, 7 names that are really selling points, for that new draft class. And outside of Kyler Murray being that potential number 1 overall pick and a quarterback and the whole Oakland A's thing, if Dwayne Haskins goes to the Bengals at number 11, if Drew Lock ends up with the Giants at number 17, I don't think that there's going to be a whole ton of buzz around these guys. Let me go grab that guy that may or may not be Eli Manning's successor. I think next year is going to be a real positional player, quarterback heavy draft at the top. And I think when we reflect back 5 years from now, we're going to go, man, that was a really good draft. But from the collector side of things, I don't think it's going to hold a whole lot of, long-term collectability.
Absolutely.
I'm with you.
So our last topic before we head out, just be a sentence or 2 paragraph. What advice would you have with what you know now? If you could go back, a couple years, your younger collecting self, what advice would you give yourself?
Don't buy boxes, buy team sets.
Mike?
I think for me, I'm going to just go back the last couple of years because the way younger self had a lot of fun when I was 8, 9, 10. But when I got back into it, I tried to mimic the mindset of collecting everything. And everything I say, all the sets that were out there to get. Back when I was growing up, you could get your Topps, Donruss, and Fleer, and then eventually, Upper Deck. But when I got back into it in 15 and 16, I was trying to put together Flagship, Gypsy Queen, Archives, pretty much all of the main baseball sets. And it didn't take long before I realized that was just going to be too much of a headache to do. And so I'd say, scale it back, still build your sets, but pick just a couple of them.
Absolutely. My advice to my younger self is find another hobby.
Right.
No, I think we're all kind of the same thing. Is it takes a good 3, 4, 5 years for you to find yourself in the hobby, to find out what you really want to collect. I was the same way, Mike, getting into it back in 2010, 2011. It was like, oh, I'm going to collect everything. All these little insert sets are fantastic. I want them all. I was collecting both baseball and football at the time because my wife liked football. And by 2012, I was like, don't buy boxes. By 2013, I was like, I hate football cards. And by 2014, it was like, I just want everything and anything I can get my hands on A's, and that's it.
Yep.
And I'd spent a lot of money and time along the way. So, we kind of touched on this, I believe, last week as well, about changing your PC. But I think at the end of the day, our advice to our younger self is, find something else to do, So as we close up, I believe we're going to have a special collectors spotlight this weekend. So if you want to join us this Sunday, the 28th, a special edition of About the Cards, we're going to chat with Ben Aguirre at Cardboard Icons about his collection, his blog, his thoughts on the hobby. Please follow at About the Cards on Twitter. We haven't determined a time. It'll most likely be around noon or 1.
Sure.
That's typically when we do it, that specific time. But, I don't want to give you the wrong time because we haven't settled out with Ben yet. I do know that we are anticipating Sunday. So there's that.
And shoot us your questions.
Yeah, absolutely. If you have any questions for Ben, he's a great resource.
Great writer.
And great writer. President company also excluded. You guys have any final thoughts on anything we talked about before we head out?
No, not really.
I just want to say thanks again for asking me to jump on. It was a lot of fun. Always have a good time chatting about cards with you guys. And so, thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
No, absolutely.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, so before we say goodbye and go through all of the normal outro stuff, we really appreciate you pinch hitting tonight. Tim was out of town and couldn't be with us this evening. And of course, we'll definitely have you on again in the near future. Why don't you tell everybody out there listening where they can find you?
Sure. You can follow me at the Mike Summer, where you might be able to catch some fun memes that I screen grab from the show. And you can always check out waxpackhero.com as well, where I blog about the hobby and do some set reviews, do some industry talk, and just try to capture what's going on in my hobby world.
Yeah, and that's Mike Summer with an O, SOMMER,
Yep.
not you. A great resource, especially if you have any questions about making this a side hustle or a potential self-sustaining hobby. If you're looking to sell on sport lots, Mike is a phenomenal resource. On our website, aboutthecards.wordpress.com, there's a section for blogs. Mike's blog is on there. If you want to just click there, and it'll link you right over to his stuff. Definitely go back and catch up on all of his old blogs, because he's definitely has some really good information. So you'll definitely be seeing him on the show again in the near future, so long as he doesn't sell on Twitter. It's really the only asterisk. We're live every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time.
10 Central.
10 Central on YouTube. Make sure to subscribe and review our show on YouTube, iTunes, and Stitcher. You can follow us on Twitter at About the Cards. Follow me at Our Trading Cards. Stefan at Junkwax Twins. You can follow Tim, who's absent this evening, at Big Ship 79.
Don't do it.
Yeah, I mean, that one's kind of questionable. Definitely follow the Mike Summer with an O, not a Mike Summer. That's the wrong guy. It's the Mike Summer. Okay. So please share your hobby stories. Great Pool, send us your questions. If you have anything cool, we always love to try to. I mean, these shows week after week happen organically, honestly. A lot of times Monday morning we're like, what's going on? We have no idea, nothing to talk about this week. And then 17 things come up on Twitter. A lot of times I'm an intentional antagonist to kind of create debate. And then that ends up being a show topic that following Wednesday. So a lot of times it's nothing personal. It's just to spark debate. And that's what I love about this hobby. All of you guys, the two of you guys specifically, it creates good thought. And it goes beyond just opening up packs or collecting your cards. We can all share this hobby as a family. Once again, I want to throw out real quick, if you want to make any donations to Stu's Memorial, Stuart Payne of Let Me Get That Potograph, head over, contact Drew at LGTP Podcast on Twitter. I'm sure he can link you over to Autumn's GoFundMe page if you want to make any donations. And again, those cards are for sale right now. I don't know when they're going to go to printing press. I'm assuming that they're going to probably wait till all 100 have been sold. They are $15 a piece if you'd like to order one or two. And you can have them serial numbered or in the Carolina Blue. Phenomenal work by Ken Carl. I don't know his Twitter handle offhand, but that's Ken Carl with Carl spelled with a K. And he takes commissions as well. He did a phenomenal job on that card. So if you want to support their family or offer your condolences to the Payne family or Drew himself, definitely you can reach out in private or through Twitter.
And I put all three of those links in live chat.
No, absolutely. And I'm sure when Tim is back at the helm tomorrow, he can shoot out a couple of tweets that have that stuff. So
absolutely.
If you guys don't have anything else, let's call that a night and on to the next.
Sure. I'll see you guys next week. Well, at least one of you. When are you coming on, Mike?
We'll talk.
No, absolutely.
Cool.
All right. Good night, guys.
Good night.